The snowstorm raged outside, icy winds pounding against the walls of Adam's cabin. Inside, the retired firefighter sat in his living room, the glow of the fireplace casting flickering shadows across the space. The blizzard had isolated him for days in the Montana wilderness, with only the occasional crackle of logs in the fire breaking the silence. Then a sound cut through the stillness, a faint, desperate scratching. Adam frowned, setting down his mug of tea, and listened closely. It came again, this time with a muffled whimper. He stood, his heart starting to race. The noise was coming from the front door. Approaching the glass door cautiously, Adam froze, his eyes widening. There, framed against the swirling snow, stood a German shepherd, trembling from the cold. Pressed tightly against her were two tiny puppies, barely visible beneath her protective stance. Frost clung to her fur, her breath rising in puffs of vapor, and her eyes, filled with desperation, locked onto Adam's. He stood still, his hand hovering over the doorknob. Opening the door could mean inviting trouble, but her gaze stirred something deep within him. The decision he was about to make would change their lives forever. Adam's heart pounded as he stood before the door. The storm roared behind the shivering shepherd, her breath fogging the frosted glass. She hunched over, shielding the two pups clinging to her side, their small bodies nearly buried in the accumulating snow. Adam could see her ribs pressing through her ice-matted fur, her eyes pleading, a mix of fear and hope fixed on him. "What the hell happened to you?" he whispered to himself, his breath mingling with the cold air inside. Instinctively, he reached for the knob, and as the door creaked open, an icy gust surged into the cabin, carrying the storm's merciless chill. The shepherd didn't move, her paws rooted in the snow, her gaze steady on Adam as if unsure whether to trust him. "Come on, girl, get in here," Adam urged, crouching to appear less threatening. "You'll freeze out there." The dog let out a soft whimper, glanced briefly at her pups, and stepped forward slowly, cautiously. She nudged one with her nose, encouraging them to follow. The smaller pup stumbled in the snow, its tiny legs struggling. Without hesitation, the mother gently picked it up by the scruff and carried it inside, the second pup trailing close behind. As soon as they were in, Adam slammed the door shut, blocking out the storm's relentless howl. The sudden warmth of the cabin made the shepherd tremble harder, her body adjusting to the shift. Adam grabbed an old blanket from the couch and carefully draped it over her and the pups. She flinched at first, but realizing he meant no harm, she let out a long, shaky sigh and settled near the fire, curling protectively around her babies. Adam knelt beside her, his mind racing. The pups were tiny, their eyes barely open, so frail he could see their little chests rise and fall with labored breaths. He reached to touch one, but the mother's low growl stopped him. Not aggressive, just a warning, a sign she was still wary. All right, Adam murmured, raising his hands in surrender. "I get it. You're a good mom. You've been through hell, haven't you?" He stood, fetched a bowl from the kitchen, filled it with warm water, and placed it near her, stepping back to give her space. She eyed him warily, but eventually leaned forward, lapping at the water as her pups huddled closer to her side. Adam watched from a distance, his thoughts swirling. Where had she come from? How had she ended up in a blizzard with two newborns? Her condition suggested she'd been alone for a while, long enough to grow weak and desperate, but not enough to give up. Her journey here with her pups through the storm was nothing short of a miracle. But now what? Adam wasn't prepared for this. He'd always loved dogs, but his retired life had taken a quieter turn, pet-free, and the thought of caring for 3 dogs, especially in such dire need, felt overwhelming. Yet looking at her exhausted frame and the way she guarded her pups, he knew he couldn't turn them away. "You've got a fighter spirit, I'll give you that," Adam said softly. "Guess that makes 2 of us." The night dragged on, and Adam worked to make them comfortable. He laid out towels for the pups, set a bowl of food near the mother, and stoked the fire to keep the room warm. The shepherd watched his every move closely, but as the hours passed, her posture softened. For the first time, she rested her head on the blanket, her eyes fluttering shut. Adam sat in his chair, the fire crackling beside him, feeling an odd sense of purpose. He didn't know what tomorrow held, but for now he'd done what he could, silently vowing to the mother and her pups. They were safe, and he wouldn't let anything happen to them. The next morning, February 15th, 2026, Adam woke to faint whimpers and the crackle of a fire that had burned low overnight. The storm had passed, leaving a glistening blanket of snow in the early sunlight. Rubbing his eyes, he immediately thought of his unexpected guess. By the fireplace, the shepherd still lay curled around her pups, who stirred slightly beneath her protective embrace. Her ears twitched at his movement, amber eyes opening to meet his. There was still caution in her gaze, but it lacked the desperation of the night before. "Morning, girl," Adam said gently, stretching and heading to the kitchen. "Let's see if we can get you some food." He rummaged through the pantry, finding a can of chicken soup. Not much, but better than nothing. He warmed it up and carefully placed the bowl near her. She lifted her head, sniffed cautiously, and after a moment, began to eat. The pups, sensing her movement, let out small cries and nuzzled closer to her warmth. Adam knelt a few feet away, watching. "You're a tough one," he said softly, "carrying those little ones through that storm. You deserve better." As the morning wore on, he assessed their condition. The mother was visibly malnourished, her ribs stark against her thin frame, but the pups, though frail, had enough fight to nurse, their tiny tails wagging faintly. Adam's heart ached at the sight. He'd seen plenty of hardship as a firefighter, but the quiet struggle of these animals hit differently. Determined to help further, he called the nearest vet clinic. "Hey, this is Adam Kowalski," he said when the receptionist answered. "I've got a German shepherd and her 2 pups here. They're in rough shape. Can you take a look at them?" The voice was warm but firm. "Of course, Mr. Kowalski. Bring them in this afternoon. We'll fit you in." Adam hung up, relieved, glancing at the shepherd licking her pups tenderly. "Hear that, girl? We're getting you help." Getting them to the vet was no small task. Adam grabbed an old blanket and gently coaxed the mother onto it. She tensed, growling softly when he got too close to her pups. "It's okay," he reassured, moving slowly. "I won't hurt them, I promise." After minutes of gentle persuasion, she let him lift her and the pups into the back of his truck. He secured the blanket, ensuring their comfort, and drove toward town. The roads were icy from the storm, and he drove carefully, questions swirling. Where had she come from? Was someone looking for her? Or had she been abandoned to fend for herself in the brutal cold? At the clinic, the staff moved swiftly, examining the mother and pups. "She's severely underweight," said the vet, Dr. Maria Zielinska, running her hands along the dog's bony frame. "But she's resilient. Her pups are lucky she made it this far." Maria glanced at Adam thoughtfully. "She's been through a lot, but with care, she'll recover. Do you know where she's from?" Adam shook his head. "She showed up at my door last night. I couldn't leave her out there." The vet smiled softly. "Well, she picked the right door." By the time Adam brought them home, the mother seemed calmer. The pups, fed at the clinic, wriggled happily, nestling back into her side. Adam sat nearby, watching her relax, and even let him sit closer. He stroked her head. "You're safe now," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what you've been through, but you've got a place here as long as you want." For the first time, the shepherd leaned into his touch, her body no longer rigid with fear. Adam felt a lump in his throat. He'd opened the door on instinct, unsure of what would follow, but now seeing her trust grow, he realized they'd both found something missing, a purpose, and maybe a second chance. The days brought a steady rhythm of recovery and trust. Adam named the shepherd Luna, and she slowly regained strength. Her sunken eyes began to shine with life, and the pups, whom he called Spark and Ash, grew more active each day. Adam spent hours by the fireplace, letting Luna get used to him. At first, she watched him warily, protective and tense, but little by little, her walls crumbled. She let him sit closer, her growls softening into sighs, and eventually, she allowed his touch without flinching. One night, as the wind howled outside, Adam sat on the floor, leaning against the couch, watching the fire dance. Luna lay nearby, head on her paws, while Spark and Ash tumbled clumsily, wagging their tiny tails. Adam smiled at their antics. "You've got some tough little ones, Luna," he said softly, glancing at her. She lifted her head, her eyes holding something he could only call gratitude. He reached out slowly, brushing her head, and to his surprise, she didn't pull away. She leaned into him, her body finally at ease. Weeks passed, and Luna's transformation was undeniable. Her once matted coat gleamed with health, her ribs faded from view, and her energy returned in bursts. She played with her pups, nudging them with her nose, watching them stumble around the cabin with excited yips. Adam was changing too. For years, he'd lived alone in the cabin, content with the quiet solitude of retirement. But Luna and her pups breathed new life into his world. Silent evenings now echoed with playful barks and the soft patter of paws on the wooden floor. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed purpose until now. One afternoon, while chopping wood outside, Adam noticed Luna at the window, her nose pressed to the glass. Spark and Ash played at her feet, tumbling over each other. He wiped sweat from his brow and waved. Luna wagged her tail, just once, but it was enough to warm his heart. Inside, she greeted him at the door, nudging his hand with her nose, her tail wagging slightly. It was the first time she'd approached him willingly, and Adam couldn't hide his grin. "Well, aren't you full of surprises today?" he chuckled, scratching behind her ears. Luna leaned in, her tail wagging more eagerly as Spark and Ash barked happily, circling his legs. As their bond deepened, Adam began to wonder about Luna's past. What had led her to his door that snowy night of February 14th? The questions lingered, but one thing he knew for sure. Her story was one of survival. She'd faced the worst and emerged with her pups. She was a fighter through and through. That night by the fire, he looked at her and said softly, "I don't know where you came from, girl, but I'm glad you found me. You and these little ones, you're family now." Luna raised her head, her eyes meeting his with a quiet understanding, a bond beyond words. She sighed and rested her head on his lap, fully relaxed for the first time since arriving. Adam stroked her fur, a lump rising in his throat. He hadn't expected a stray dog and her pups to transform his life so deeply. But in the fire's warmth and their gentle sounds, he realized they'd given him something he hadn't known he'd lost: companionship, purpose, and renewed hope. Morning sunlight filtered through the cabin's windows, casting golden beams across the floor where Spark and Ash played. Luna lay nearby, eyes half closed, but her ears perked at every sound. Adam stood by the kitchen counter, sipping tea, watching them with a peace he hadn't felt in years. Yet a nagging question gnawed at him. Where had Luna come from? Her thin frame, the faint scars on her coat, her caution at sudden noises. Someone had failed her, and Adam couldn't shake the feeling that whoever it was might still be out there. That afternoon, he took Luna and the pups outside. The snow was melting, revealing patches of frozen ground. Luna stepped onto the porch cautiously, sniffing the air, the pups wobbling behind, yipping with excitement. Adam smiled. "You're safe now, girl. Nothing's going to hurt you here." But as they ventured farther, Luna froze, ears up, body tense, nose pointing toward the wood's edge. Adam followed her gaze, stiffening. "What is it?" he asked, stepping closer. Luna growled low, her hackles rising. He squinted into the trees but saw nothing. Still, her protective, defensive stance told him everything. Something was out there. He quickly scooped up the pups and guided Luna back inside, locking the door and drawing the curtains, his heart racing. Luna paced by the window, eyes darting toward the woods. That evening by the fire, unease lingered. Luna lay near her pups, but her gaze flicked to the door at every sound. Adam scratched behind her ears. "You're not just paranoid, are you? You've seen this before." Staring into the flames, he wondered what Luna had endured to be so wary. Had she been abandoned? Hurt? His fist clenched at the thought. Whoever did this didn't deserve to be called human. The next day, he decided to seek answers, loading Luna and the pups into his truck and heading to town. The local animal shelter was small, but well-run. Adam approached the desk with a photo of Luna and her pups. "Found her outside my cabin," he explained to Anna, a kind-looking woman in her 40s. "Any idea if someone's reported her missing?" Anna studied the photo and shook her head. "I don't recognize her. We see dogs like her more often than we'd like. Breeders around here keep them in awful conditions and dump them when they're no use." Anger surged in Adam. "So she was probably abandoned?" Anna nodded grimly. "It happens too much, but she's lucky she found you." The drive back was heavy with silence. Luna had been discarded like trash, but she mattered. To her pups, to him. Back home, Luna stepped out of the truck, sniffed the air, her tail wagging faintly. Spark and Ash followed, their little legs working hard. Adam watched, his heart swelling with anger and hope. "You're safe now," he said firmly. "No one's hurting you again." Luna turned to him, her amber eyes softening, and for the first time, he felt she truly understood. He silently vowed, whoever hurt her would never get the chance again. The following days passed in uneasy calm. Luna relaxed more each day, her trust in Adam growing. Spark and Ash explored the cabin with boundless curiosity, filling the quiet with playful barks and tumbles. Yet the feeling of being watched persisted. Late one evening, it was confirmed. Adam sat by the window stroking Luna's fur as Spark and Ash dozed by the fire. Moonlight illuminated the snow-covered yard when he saw it, a figure at the wood's edge. His heart stopped. He leaned closer, squinting. The figure was tall, cloaked in darkness, unmistakably human, standing still, watching. "Luna," Adam whispered. Her ears perked, and she followed his gaze. The moment she saw the figure, she let out a deep, guttural growl, standing protectively in front of her pups. Adam drew the curtains and grabbed his phone, dialing the sheriff. "This is Adam Kowalski. Someone's outside my cabin, standing by the woods," he said, keeping his voice steady. The dispatcher promised a deputy, but Adam's grip tightened. Something felt wrong, too deliberate. Time crawled as Luna growled by the door, and Adam paced, glancing at the window. Finally, headlights pierced the dark, and he exhaled as the deputy's car rolled in. Deputy Katarzyna Nowak, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, stepped out. "It wasn't a random passerby," Adam said firmly. "They were watching us." Katarzyna nodded, hand on her flashlight holster. "I'll check around. Stay inside, lock everything." He waited by the window, fists clenched, Luna beside him, tense. Katarzyna returned, her face grim. "No one's there now, but I found tracks leading to your property line. Someone was definitely watching." Adam swallowed hard. "Anything else?" She hesitated. "A rope tied to a tree, old but recently used. Looks like a camp in the woods." A chill ran down his spine. "Will they come back?" "Can't say," she replied. "Patrols will circle more often. Call if you see anything." After she left, the cabin felt heavier. Adam locked every door and window, his mind racing. Who was out there? And why were they fixated on Luna? He settled into the armchair, and Luna pressed her head against his knee. "Don't worry, girl. I won't let anyone hurt you or those pups," he whispered, stroking her fur. Her amber eyes met his, and for the first time, he saw fear mixed with recognition. She knew something about the figure in the woods, and it terrified her. Sleep eluded him that night. He stayed by the window, rifle against the wall, ready. Luna lay at his feet, ears twitching, while Spark and Ash slept by the fire, oblivious to the lurking danger. He vowed silently, no matter who came, he'd protect them. They were his family, and their second chance wouldn't be stolen. Dawn's first rays seeped through the curtains, faintly lighting the cabin. Adam had barely slept, his mind on the shadowy figure. Luna stayed close, tense, while the pups slept soundly by the fire. He was about to pour more tea when Luna bolted to the door, growling low. He grabbed his rifle, peeked through the curtain. His stomach dropped. The figure was back, closer now, just beyond the porch. "Damn it," he muttered, gripping the rifle. "Stay here," he told Luna firmly, though he knew she wouldn't listen. Cracking the door, he stepped onto the porch, boots crunching on frost. "Who's out there?" he called, voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at him. "This is private property." The figure stepped forward, a man in his 40s, face shadowed by a tattered jacket hood, a rope in hand and a smirk on his lips. "That's my dog," he said calmly, menace lacing his tone. "I've been looking for her." Adam's blood ran cold. "Your dog? She showed up at my door half dead with 2 pups. If she's yours, why the hell was she like that?" The man shrugged, advancing. "She got out, happens sometimes. I'm here to take her back." Adam raised his rifle, aiming at the man's chest. "You're not taking her anywhere. She's not yours anymore." The smirk faded, and the man stopped. "You don't know what you're dealing with, old man. That dog's trouble. She's better off with me." Adam tightened his grip. "No, she's better off with someone who gives a damn. Get off my land." Luna appeared in the doorway, teeth bared, her deep growl echoing in the cold morning air. The man's smirk vanished, replaced by fear. "Back, Luna," Adam ordered, but she didn't budge, eyes locked on the man. Adam realized then she remembered him, had escaped him, his cruelty. The man stepped back, the rope slipping from his hand. "You've made a mistake, old man," he said, voice trembling. "You don't know what she's capable of." Adam advanced, rifle steady. "The mistake was yours, thinking you could take her. She's staying, and so are her pups. Leave, or you'll regret it." The man hesitated, eyes darting between them, then turned and retreated into the woods. Adam watched until he was gone, tension easing. Inside, he bolted the door and crouched by Luna, still on guard. "He's gone," he said softly, stroking her head. "Good job, girl. You kept us safe." Luna exhaled shakily, nuzzling his hand. The pups stirred, their yips breaking the silence. Adam scooped them up and placed them beside her, watching her curl around them protectively. That night by the fire, he sat with them, knowing the man might return, but Luna wouldn't run again. She'd found her home, her family, her courage, and Adam had found what he hadn't known he'd lost, a reason to fight, protect, and love. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive. Together, they'd face the darkness, and together, they'd face whatever came next. Luna's journey from a frozen doorstep to a warm home was remarkable. Her resilience, her bond with Adam, and her unwavering devotion to her pups revealed the transformative power of love and trust. They overcame the shadows of her past, proving hope can thrive in the darkest moments. Stories like hers remind us of animals' incredible courage and the profound impact they can have on our lives. If this touched your heart, let it inspire action. Consider adopting, supporting a shelter, or sharing this story. Together we can change lives, one rescue at a time. Thank you for joining this journey.